Hey guys, welcome to today's lesson on solving one-step algebraic equations. This is just a very quick intro to algebra. If you would like some more complicated examples, you can definitely check out my two-step algebraic equations video and my solving complex algebraic equations video as well. Okay, so let's start with some one-step equations. Now with examples like this, what we're looking for is an inverse operation and to balance both sides. And when I say inverse operation, we're looking at addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. So these are our inverse operations. The opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So looking at our first example here, x plus 4 equals 10. The very first step is to try and find an operation in here, whether an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. And the very first thing we can see here is that there's a plus, so that means that we'll be adding things. The next step is to figure out what are we actually adding. And in this question here, x plus 4 equals 10, we are adding 4. The very first step is to figure out what is the inverse operation of addition. So if we look at our list of inverse operations, the inverse, or the opposite to addition, is to subtract. So our very first step is going to be subtract, and we are subtracting the number 4. So our first step is to take away 4. Now, as I said in the beginning, we're looking for the inverse operation and we're looking to balance both sides. So if we take away 4 from this side, we also need to take away 4 from the other side. So when we look at our next line of working out, we're going to take away 4 from both sides. On this side here, we have 10 take away 4, so we'll have 6. And on this left side here, we have a positive 4 take away 4. That will actually just cancel out, and all that we're left with is an x. So we're left with x equals 6, and that is our final answer. Okay, let's take a look at a slightly different example. With example 2, we have y take away 5 equals 20. Now, just like in the last example, we need to figure out what is the inverse operation that we need to apply, and then apply that to both sides of the equation. So the very first thing we need to do is figure out, is there an addition, a subtraction, a multiplication, or a division that's going on in this equation? And as we can see, we have y take away 5. So we know our very first step is to do the opposite, or the inverse, of take away 5. And the opposite of a subtraction is addition. So our first step is going to be to add 5. And what we're going to do is we're going to add 5 to both sides of the equation. So starting on the right, we have 20 plus 5, which will become 25. And on the left, we have take away 5 plus 5. Now the two of those will actually cancel out, and all we're left with on the left side is y. And so our final answer is y equals 25. Now you might be wondering, why do we just cross out that negative 5? Well, the reason why is because if we did have negative 5 and we added a 5 to that, what we would end up with is 0. So really what that is y plus 0 equals 25. But in algebra, and really any time, we don't have to write y plus 0. We can just leave it with y. So after we've added 5, because that was the inverse operation, we know that we end up with y equals 25. Alright guys, here are 4 simple one-step equations for you guys to attempt. If you pause the video now, you can jump ahead and answer these yourselves. If you'd like me to go through these with you, just keep watching and I'll go through the worked solutions for each of these 4 questions. Okay, question 1. Our first step is to figure out the inverse operation and apply that to both sides. We have an x plus 7 equals 9. The operation there is a plus 7, so we need to do the opposite, which is minus 7. So we do that to both sides of our equation. On the right, we have 9 take away 7, which will be 2. And on the left, we've got positive 7 take away 7, which will be 0, so that cancels out. And we're left with just x equals 2. So hopefully you got that for question 1. Moving on to question 2. Instead of a plus, we now have a minus or a subtract. So we have y minus 5 equals 4. So this time in our square brackets, we need to do the opposite or the inverse of minus 5. And this time, the opposite of minus 5 is going to be plus 5. So once again, we do the same thing to both sides. On the right, we have 4 plus 5, which will be 9. And on the left, once again, we've got negative 5 plus 5. Those two will cancel out to give 0. So we're left with y equals 9. Moving on to question 3. Very similar to question 2, actually. We've got g take away 10 equals 15. Once again, the inverse operation of negative 10 or minus 10 is to plus 10. So we plus 10 to both sides. On the right, we'll end up with 15 plus 10, which is 25. And on the left, negative 10 plus 10 cancels out to get 0, and we're left with g equals 25. Now, question 4 is slightly different. You won't have any problem if you know your negatives, though. So, same beginning, we have x plus 5 equals negative 3. Now, the first step is exactly the same. We figure out the inverse operation of plus 5. So, the opposite of plus 5 is to minus 5. So, we subtract 5 from both sides. On the right, we have negative 3 take away 5. So if you imagine a number line, we're starting at negative 3 and we're moving down 5 places. So where we actually end up is negative 8. And on the left, it's business as usual. We have plus 5, minus 5. That will cancel out. And what we're left with is x equals negative 8. So the only real difference with question 4 is that we had a negative number that we were subtracting from, but the steps themselves are exactly the same. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments with any topic requests that you guys would like to see in some future videos.